On the day I'd planned a dream vacation to Santorini, Greece, I got a call from my daughter. "Mom, Grandma's saying we're a burden," she sobbed. My mother had left my kids stranded at the airport, thinking she could ditch us for a first-class escape. What she didn't know. The trip was booked on my account, and I canceled everything, leaving her stranded halfway around the world. The blue bikini fell from my fingers as my phone vibrated against the nightstand. Another vibration, urgent and insistent. I glanced at the caller ID, Emma. My 13-year-old shouldn't be calling now. She and her brother were supposed to be mid-flight with my mother to our connecting gate. "Mom." Her voice came through broken, hitching with sobs. "Emma? What's wrong, honey?" I pressed the phone closer to my ear, the cheerful Santorini travel guide on my bed suddenly forgotten. "Grandma's gone." The words tumbled out between gasps. "She said we're a burden, Mom. She just left us here." If you're connecting with this family's journey from betrayal to strength, hit subscribe. It's free and keeps these real-life stories coming. Now back to that life-changing phone call. The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. "What do you mean, left you? Where are you?" "Terminal B." Another sob. "She told us she was going to the bathroom but she never came back. Then Jason found a note in my backpack." My son's voice came through in the background. "She took her suitcase too, Mom." I glanced at the clock. 1:42 p.m. Their connecting flight to New York was scheduled for 3:15, where I would meet them before we all boarded for Greece. The international portion was booked under my account, my treat. The vacation we'd planned for months, my attempt to heal our family after the divorce finalized 6 months ago. Listen to me very carefully. I forced steadiness into my voice while my hands shook uncontrollably. "Go to the customer service desk. Tell them exactly what happened. I'm leaving right now and I'll be there in 40 minutes. Mom," Grandma said. Emma's voice cracked. "She said now that you're divorced, you'll just drain her savings and that she's not letting us ruin her retirement." Something cold and sharp twisted in my chest. "That's not true, sweetheart. None of that is true. But why would she just leave us?" The raw hurt in my daughter's voice scraped against my heart. I swallowed back the storm building inside me. "I don't know, but we're going to figure this out together." "Is Jason with you?" "Yeah." "Put me on speaker." I heard the subtle shift in audio. "Jason, you're 15. I need you to be the big brother right now. Get to customer service and stay together. Don't talk to strangers." "I'm coming." "Okay, Mom." His voice sounded smaller than usual. "But what about Santorini?" "One problem at a time," I said, already shoving essentials into my purse. "We'll sort everything out when I get there." I ended the call and stood paralyzed for exactly 3 seconds before rage and fear propelled me into action. My mother had abandoned my children, her own grandchildren, at an airport. The same woman who'd criticized my parenting since the day Emma was born, who'd made passive-aggressive comments about my frivolous spending since Mark left me for his 27-year-old paralegal. As I raced down the stairs, fragments of recent conversations with my mother resurfaced with new meaning. Her insistence on separate flights now seemed calculated rather than practical. "I'll take the kids early so you can finish packing," she'd said with that tight smile that never reached her eyes. The way she'd questioned my financial decisions last Sunday over dinner. "A trip to Greece seems extravagant for someone newly divorced, don't you think, Rachel?" I'd defended myself then, explaining how I'd saved for this trip for years, how the divorce settlement had been fair, how I wanted to give the kids something positive after watching their father build a new life without us. My car engine roared to life as another memory surfaced. My mother asking to use my laptop 3 nights ago to check the weather in Santorini. Had she been accessing my travel account then? The 38-minute drive to the airport became a blur of honking horns and yellow lights. My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles blanched white, my mind racing faster than my sedan. I called Emma twice more during brief stops at red lights. The second time she confirmed they'd reached customer service. A kind woman named Brenda was helping them. Security had been notified about the abandoned minors. Abandoned. The word tasted like copper in my mouth. Traffic snarled near the airport exit. I hammered my palm against the steering wheel, my composure fraying as precious minutes ticked away. My children were alone, confused, hurt, and all because my mother had decided we weren't worth her time or support. Mark's voice echoed in my head from our last argument. "Your problem, Rachel, is that you never stand up to your mother. He'd said it after she'd rearranged our kitchen without permission, claiming my organizational system was impractical for a busy family. I'd let it go as I always did to keep peace. Peace at what cost? I finally reached short-term parking and didn't even wince at the exorbitant rates. I grabbed my purse and ran through the parking garage toward Terminal B. My sensible flats slapped against concrete, my breath coming in short gasps that had nothing to do with exertion and everything to do with panic. The terminal doors slid open, welcoming me into the chaos of announcements, rolling suitcases and harried travelers. I scanned the signs, spotted customer service and made a beeline through the crowd. And then I saw them, my children huddled together on plastic chairs beside a desk. Emma's face was blotchy from crying, her dark hair falling from its ponytail. Jason sat with unnatural stillness, his lanky frame hunched protectively toward his sister, looking far older than 15. Mom. Emma spotted me first. She launched herself into my arms with such force I nearly stumbled backward. Jason approached more slowly, relief evident in his softening posture. She's really gone, Mom. Security checked the cameras. She boarded a direct flight to Athens 20 minutes ago. The customer service representative, her name tag confirmed she was indeed Brenda, approached with a sympathetic smile and a tablet. Ms. Mitchell? We've been taking care of your children. If you could just verify some information. I nodded, one arm still wrapped around Emma's shaking shoulders and accepted the tablet. But as I glanced down at the screen, the email notification banner at the top of my phone caught my attention. Your upgrade to first class has been confirmed. I hadn't requested any upgrade. The pieces suddenly locked into place with devastating clarity. My mother hadn't just abandoned my children. She'd used my account to upgrade herself to first class on her escape flight, leaving all of us behind. Ms. Mitchell. Brenda's voice seemed to come from far away. Are you all right? I wasn't. Not even close. But my children were watching, their faces reflecting my own shock and hurt. Yes, I lied, squeezing Emma closer. We're going to be just fine. But as Jason placed a crumpled note in my free hand, my mother's handwriting unmistakable with its perfect penmanship, I knew nothing would ever be fine between my mother and me again. I smoothed out the crumpled note with trembling fingers, my eyes scanning the familiar handwriting that had once signed my school permission slips and birthday cards. Rachel, this arrangement isn't working. I won't be financing your post-divorce lifestyle or becoming a burden bearer for your children. You've always been irresponsible with money, and I refuse to let you drain what I've worked my whole life for. Don't try to contact me in Greece. Mom. The fluorescent airport lights suddenly seemed too harsh, the terminal noise fading to a distant hum as I read the words again. Not only had she abandoned 2 minors, she'd planned it. Ms. Mitchell. Brenda's gentle voice pulled me back. Airport security would like to speak with you. They've reviewed some footage that might help clarify the situation. I folded the note carefully and slipped it into my pocket. Of course. Emma clung to my side as we followed Brenda through a series of corridors. Jason walked slightly ahead, his shoulders rigid with an anger I'd never seen in him before. She told us she needed to use the bathroom, he said without turning around. Said we should wait by the gate and she'd bring back snacks. She hugged us goodbye, Emma added quietly. I didn't know it was goodbye. The security office was surprisingly calm compared to the bustling terminal. A middle-aged man with kind eyes introduced himself as Officer Reyes and gestured for us to sit. We've pieced together what happened, he said, turning his computer monitor so we could see. This is your mother arriving with your children at 11:43 a.m. The security footage showed my mother guiding Emma and Jason through the terminal, her designer luggage rolling behind her. They looked so normal, a grandmother traveling with her grandchildren. At 12:17 she tells them to wait at gate B22 while she uses the restroom. Officer Reyes clicked to another camera angle. Instead she goes directly to customer service. The footage showed my mother approaching the counter, gesturing animatedly to the agent. She claimed there was a family emergency and she needed to change her flight immediately, Officer Reyes explained. She showed them something on her phone, we believe it was your account information, and requested an upgrade to first class on the direct Athens flight, claiming the change was pre-approved by the account holder. My stomach twisted. She used my information to upgrade herself? Officer Reyes nodded grimly. The charge went through on your account. The agent had no reason to suspect anything was amiss. But that's not even the worst part, he continued, clicking to another timestamp. We checked previous footage. Your mother has been to this airport 3 times in the past 2 weeks, each time speaking with different agents about itinerary changes. The screen showed my mother on different days, always alone, always at the customer service desk. She was planning this the whole time, I whispered. It appears so, Officer Reyes agreed. Each visit she gathered information about direct flights to Greece, about our security protocols for traveling minors, about the fastest ways to change tickets. A desk phone rang and another officer answered it before approaching us. Ms. Mitchell? We've located a witness, the barista from the coffee shop near Gate B22. She overheard your mother tell your children she'd be right back. She became concerned when she saw the children alone for over 30 minutes and eventually approached them. Lily, Emma said suddenly. She gave us free hot chocolates and helped us call you. I'd like to thank her, I said, my voice cracking. Officer Reyes nodded. She's still on shift. I can arrange that. As we walked through the terminal again, I tried to process the calculated nature of my mother's betrayal. This wasn't a spontaneous decision or a momentary lapse in judgment. She had methodically planned to abandon my children after using my own account to secure her luxury escape. The coffee shop was quieter now. The afternoon rush subsided. A young woman with a nose ring and kind eyes spotted us and immediately came around the counter. You must be the mom, she said, extending her hand. I'm Lily. Thank you for helping my children, I managed, squeezing her hand perhaps too tightly. Lily shook her head. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Your mother-in-law seemed so. Mother, I corrected automatically. She's my mother. Lily's eyes widened slightly. I'm so sorry. That's worse somehow. What exactly did you see? I asked. She was sitting with them, Lily explained, gesturing to a table by the window. I served them all about an hour before everything happened. She was checking her watch constantly, seemed agitated. Then she got a text message, stood up abruptly, told the kids she needed the bathroom and would bring back snacks. But she took her carry-on with her, which seemed odd. Did you hear anything else? Officer Reyes asked. Lily hesitated. She was on the phone earlier. I heard her say something like, I deserve this after everything I've done for her, and she'll figure it out eventually, she always does. Each word was another shard of glass in my heart. My mother hadn't just abandoned my children, she'd convinced herself she was entitled to do so. There's one more thing, Officer Reyes said as we walked back toward the main terminal. We contacted the airline. Your mother's flight to Athens is currently over the Atlantic. She'll land in approximately 7 hours. What happens then? I asked. That's largely up to you, he replied carefully. This is a complicated situation. Technically, she didn't break any laws. She left minors in a supervised public space and knew you were coming to get them. Morally reprehensible, yes, but legally ambiguous. Jason, who had been quiet for some time, suddenly spoke up. Can we see what else she's done with Mom's account? I pulled out my phone and opened my travel app, Jason and Emma leaning in to see. 3 new notifications awaited me. The first-class upgrade confirmation, a booking for a beachfront villa in Santorini, and a spa package at one of the island's most exclusive resorts. She used my account to book herself a luxury vacation, I said numbly. Everything we were supposed to experience together, she's planning to enjoy alone. Emma's face crumpled. She never wanted to come with us, did she? I pulled her close, the truth settling over us like a heavy blanket. I don't think so, honey. Officer Reyes cleared his throat. Ms. Mitchell, I've seen a lot in my years here, but this ranks among the most calculating incidents involving family members. Your mother didn't just leave your children. She orchestrated an elaborate deception while financially benefiting from your account. As we gathered our belongings at customer service, preparing to head home instead of continuing to New York, a thought suddenly occurred to me. My mother had planned meticulously, but she'd overlooked one critical detail. Everything was booked under my name on my account. The betrayal still burned, but for the first time since receiving Emma's call, I felt a flicker of something else. Power. My mother might be flying first class across the Atlantic, but her comfort was entirely in my hands. I glanced at my children, their faces still etched with hurt and confusion, and made a decision. The Santorini dream might be shattered, but I wouldn't let my mother's cruelty define what happened next. "Come on," I said, putting an arm around each of them. "We're going home. We have some plans to reconsider." The drive home passed in heavy silence. Emma had curled into herself in the back seat, headphones on, though I noticed she wasn't playing any music. Jason stared out the window, his reflection in the glass showing a jaw clenched tight enough to crack teeth. My own hands gripped the steering wheel like it might disintegrate if I loosened my hold. Our house looked exactly as I'd left it hours earlier. Front door slightly ajar from my hasty exit, half-packed suitcase spilled across my bedroom floor, Santorini travel guide still open to a page about whitewashed buildings against perfect blue skies. Yet everything had changed. "I'm making tea," I announced to the quiet kitchen, needing something, anything, to occupy my hands. "Mom." Jason's voice stopped me as I reached for the kettle. "We need to talk about Grandma." I turned slowly. My son stood in the doorway, shoulders squared like he was bracing for impact. Emma hovered behind him, eyes red-rimmed but dry now. "You're right," I said, pulling out 3 chairs at our battered oak table, the one my mother had repeatedly offered to replace because it looked so shabby. "We do need to talk." They sat across from me, a united front. When had my children grown so solemn, so adult in their composure? "She's always been like this, hasn't she?" Jason asked finally. "We just never saw it before." The question hung in the air between us. I could have softened the truth, crafted some explanation that preserved a grandmother's dignity while explaining away her actions. But looking at their faces, hurt, confused but clear-eyed, I knew they deserved honesty. "Yes," I admitted, the single word carrying the weight of years of excuses I'd made for my mother. "She's always been difficult, controlling, critical." "Then why did you let her?" Emma started, then stopped herself. "Let her what, Emma?" I pressed gently. "Let her treat you like dirt," she finished in a small voice. "All the comments about the house being messy, about your cooking, about how Dad wouldn't have left if you'd been more, I don't know, perfect or something." Each example landed like a stone in my stomach. Not because they weren't true, but because I'd somehow convinced myself my children hadn't noticed. "When you and Dad split up," Jason said, "Grandma told me not to worry because your mother always lands on her feet, usually by landing on someone else's wallet." The kettle whistled, making us all jump. I stood mechanically, poured 3 mugs of tea none of us would drink, and returned to face my children. "I've been enabling her behavior," I said, the words tasting like defeat. "Making excuses, smoothing things over, telling myself she didn't really mean it that way. I convinced myself I was keeping the peace for everyone's sake, but really..." I swallowed hard. "Really, I was just afraid of losing her too. After your father left, I couldn't bear the thought of another person walking away." Emma reached across the table and placed her small hand over mine. "But Mom, she was never really there to begin with, was she?" The simple wisdom in her question broke something loose inside me, a dam of rationalizations and feared abandonment I'd built since childhood. "No, she wasn't," I whispered. "She's always kept her love conditional, based on how well I performed to her standards." Jason's face darkened. "Is that why she didn't want us going on this trip? Because you were finally doing something good for yourself that she couldn't control?" "I think it's more complicated than that," I said, rising from the table. "Give me a minute." I went to my home office and opened my laptop. The nagging suspicion that had been building since the airport needed confirmation. I logged into my email account and searched for forwarded messages. The evidence appeared immediately. Dozens of travel confirmations and account notifications had been forwarded to an email address I recognized as my mother's. The most recent was sent 3 days ago, containing all my Santorini booking details. My hands shook as I scrolled through my sent folder. She hadn't hacked my account. I'd given her access myself months ago when she'd offered to help research options for our trip. I'd never revoked it, never even thought to question why she needed it for so long. I called the children into the office. "Look," I said, pointing to the screen. "She's had all my travel information for months. She knew exactly what she was doing today." Emma's eyes widened. "So when she told us at the gate that you might not be able to afford this trip after all, she already knew you could?" "What?" My head snapped up. "When did she say that?" "Right before she left," Jason said. "She said something like, Your mother thinks she can afford this trip, but what happens when the money runs out? Who do you think she'll come crying to? The cruel calculation of it stole my breath. She'd poisoned the well with my children before abandoning them, trying to plant seeds of doubt about my financial stability. That's not true, I said firmly. The trip was fully paid for within my budget. I'm doing fine financially, not wealthy but stable. The divorce settlement was fair. We know, Mom, Emma said. Grandma's been saying weird stuff for months, but we didn't believe her. What kind of stuff? I asked, dreading the answer. The stories tumbled out over the next hour. Subtle digs about my parenting, implications that I was using the children to punish their father, suggestions that I was just waiting to remarry someone wealthy. Each revelation was another weight added to my shoulders, another recognition of how I'd failed to protect my children from my mother's toxicity. I'm so sorry, I said when they finally finished. I should have seen what was happening. It's not your fault, Jason said with unexpected maturity. She's your mom. You're supposed to be able to trust her. As darkness fell, I sent the kids to bed with promises we'd figure everything out in the morning. But sleep evaded me. I sat on the porch swing, wrapped in a blanket against the cool night air, and confronted decades of patterns I'd willfully ignored. The trip to Santorini was supposed to be our fresh start, a chance to create new memories untainted by divorce papers and awkward custody schedules. Instead, it had ripped the bandage off a wound that had been festering my entire life. My phone buzzed with a flight notification. In 5 hours, my mother would land in Athens, expecting the luxury vacation she'd stolen from us. She would discover her luggage at the carousel, hail a taxi to the harbor, and board a ferry to Santorini, confident that I would, as I always had, simply accept her behavior and move on. As the first hints of dawn colored the horizon, I made a decision. This time would be different. This time there would be consequences. The first rays of sunlight streamed through the kitchen window as I poured my third cup of coffee. Sleep had never come, but I didn't feel tired. Instead, I was energized by a clarity I hadn't experienced since before my divorce. I opened my laptop and logged into my travel account. Everything was still there. Every reservation, every confirmation, every detail of the luxury vacation I'd spent months planning for my family. And because I'd paid for everything, because the bookings were under my name and linked to my account, I controlled it all with a few keystrokes. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. The power of the moment wasn't lost on me. For decades, I'd yielded to my mother's will, making myself smaller to accommodate her larger-than-life presence. I'd accepted her criticism as concern, her control as care. But abandoning my children, that was unforgivable. I clicked on the first reservation, the 5-star villa in OIA, perched on the caldera with a private infinity pool and breathtaking sunset views. The pictures showed whitewashed walls, blue domes, and bougainvillea cascading over stone terraces. $4,300 for the week, a splurge I'd justified as necessary healing after the divorce. I hit cancel reservation. A warning appeared. Are you sure? This cancellation cannot be undone. I clicked yes. The confirmation popped up instantly. Your reservation has been canceled. A refund will be processed to your original payment method within 3 to 5 business days. Something shifted inside me, a tension I hadn't realized I'd been carrying. I moved to the next booking, a private sunset catamaran cruise around the island with dinner and wine tasting. The guided tour of ancient Akrotiri. The airport transfer service in Santorini. With each cancellation, my breathing became easier, as if I was cutting cords that had been constricting my chest. I pictured my mother arriving at the Athens airport, smugly considering her successful escape, expecting everything to unfold according to the plan she'd stolen from me. Jason wandered into the kitchen, hair rumpled from sleep. He watched silently as I methodically erased our vacation plans. "What are you doing?" he asked finally. "Setting boundaries," I replied, clicking cancel on the island-hopping day tour. He pulled up a chair beside me. "You're canceling everything?" "Everything she was planning to use," I clarified. "She's currently over the Atlantic. When she lands, she'll have no hotel, no transportation, no tours. Nothing." Jason's eyes widened, then a slow smile spread across his face, the first I'd seen since yesterday's chaos. "She's going to freak out." "Probably." I canceled the dinner reservation at the exclusive cliffside restaurant. Good, he said with unexpected firmness. She should. Emma appeared in the doorway, still in her pajamas. What's happening? Mom's canceling Grandma's vacation, Jason informed her. Emma approached cautiously as if the laptop might bite. Can you do that? I can, I said, showing her the screen. Everything was booked on my account. It's all in my name. He stared at the screen, then at me. So she'll have nothing when she gets there? Nothing I paid for, I confirmed, canceling the ferry tickets from Athens to Santorini. Emma sat down heavily. Wow. I paused my cancellation spree to look at my children. Is this okay with you both? I know she's still your grandmother. They exchanged a glance I couldn't quite interpret. She left us at the airport, Mom, Jason said flatly. She said we were a burden. Emma nodded. And she's been saying all those awful things about you. She deserves it. Reassured, I returned to my task. The final and most crucial cancellation remained. My mother's return flight from Greece to the United States. This was the nuclear option. Without it, she'd be truly stranded overseas. My finger hovered over the button. Do it, Jason whispered. I clicked cancel. Reservation canceled. Refund processing. I sat back, staring at the screen. I just canceled every aspect of a luxury vacation my mother thought she was going to enjoy at my expense. The realization was dizzying, terrifying, and strangely exhilarating. What happens now? Emma asked. Now, I said, opening my phone's message app. I let her know. I composed a text message, reading it aloud as I typed. Enjoying the view from Terminal B? The kids and I were. By the way, I've canceled all reservations made on my account. Have a nice trip. That's ice cold, Mom, Jason said, but he was grinning. I looked at my phone's flight tracker. My mother's plane would land in Athens in approximately 1 hour. I scheduled the text message to deliver upon her arrival, when she'd be turning on her phone, expecting confirmation of her luxury shuttle service. With the final click, a strange peace settled over me. I'd spent years believing I needed my mother's approval, that keeping peace was worth any personal cost. Now, with a few decisive keystrokes, I'd drawn a line she couldn't cross again. Are we still going on vacation? Emma asked after a long silence. I closed my laptop. Not to Santorini. Not right now. But maybe somewhere else, just the three of us. Somewhere without Grandma, Jason added. Definitely without Grandma, I agreed. We ate breakfast together, the conversation lighter than it had been in months. Both kids seemed different somehow, as if seeing me stand up to my mother had changed something fundamental in our family dynamic. My phone pinged with a notification. The refund for the villa had already been processed. $4,300 back on my credit card. The other refunds would follow soon. Money that could fund a different kind of vacation, one untainted by manipulation and betrayal. You know she's going to call as soon as she gets that text, Jason said, loading dishes into the dishwasher. I know, I replied. I'm counting on it. Emma looked worried. Are you going to answer? I considered the question. For decades, I jumped whenever my mother called, prioritizing her needs and demands over everything else. That pattern ended today. No, I said finally. I'm not. At least not right away. She needs to understand that things have changed. The flight tracker updated. My mother's plane had begun its descent into Athens. Soon she would discover the consequences of her actions. As I helped my children clean up from breakfast, I felt lighter than I had in years. The Santorini vacation was gone, but something more valuable had taken its place. My power, my voice, my willingness to protect what mattered most. My phone buzzed with a delivery confirmation for my scheduled text. It had begun. The first voicemail arrived exactly 17 minutes after my text was delivered. Rachel, this is outrageous. I've just landed and there's no car service. Call me immediately. The second came 11 minutes later. I don't know what game you think you're playing, but I've just been informed that my hotel reservation doesn't exist. Fix this now. By the third call, her voice had lost its imperious edge, replaced by something I'd rarely heard from my mother. Panic. Rachel, please. I'm stranded at the Athens airport. My return flight is gone. Everything is gone. I don't understand why you're doing this to me. I played each message on speakerphone at the kitchen table, my children listening with expressions that shifted between vindication and unease. 7 calls in total, tracking my mother's journey from outrage to desperation. Is she really stuck there? Emma asked after the final message, which had dissolved into tearful recriminations. Not entirely, I explained, setting my phone down. She has her credit cards and passport. She can book her own flight home, find her own hotel. She's just never had to solve her own problems before. Especially problems she created, Jason added, though I noticed he was chewing his lower lip, a habit from childhood that emerged when he was conflicted. Are you both okay? I asked carefully. It's all right to have mixed feelings about this. Emma plucked at a loose thread on her sleeve. I feel bad for her, but also, she deserved it? Is that terrible? No, honey. It's honest. I reached across the table to squeeze her hand. Actions have consequences. For once, your grandmother is experiencing the consequences of hers. My phone buzzed again, an incoming call, not a voicemail. My mother's name flashed on the screen. All three of us stared at it until it went silent, then immediately began ringing again. You don't have to answer, Jason said. I know. I took a deep breath. But I think I'm ready to. I picked up the phone and put it on speaker. Hello, Mother. Rachel. Her voice was raw, tearful. How could you do this to me? The familiar guilt stirred reflexively, but I pushed it aside. How could you abandon your grandchildren at an airport? I didn't, she began automatically, then stopped. They were in a safe place. I knew you were coming. You left two minors alone in an international airport after telling them they were a burden, I said evenly. You used my account to book yourself a luxury vacation at my expense. I deserve a vacation, she said, a hint of her usual defiance returning. After everything I've done for you. What exactly have you done for me, Mother? The question silenced her instantly. Criticized my parenting? Undermined my confidence? Told my children I'm financially unstable? Emma and Jason exchanged a glance, clearly surprised by my directness. Silence stretched across the international connection. When my mother finally spoke, her voice was smaller. I need to come home, Rachel. Then book a flight, I said simply. You have the means. With what money? I budgeted for this trip assuming everything was paid for. I almost laughed at the absurdity. You budgeted for a stolen vacation? Another long pause. I've found a flight, she said finally. It leaves tomorrow morning, but it's expensive. That sounds like a problem you created for yourself. Rachel, please. No, Mother. For once, you're going to solve your own problems. When you get back, we can talk about what happens next. But things will be different going forward. I ended the call before she could respond. My hands were trembling, but not from fear, from a strange, fierce joy. For the first time in my adult life, I'd spoken to my mother as an equal, not as a perpetual disappointment seeking approval. That was... Jason seemed at a loss for words. That was awesome, Emma finished for him. I smiled, the tension ebbing from my shoulders. It felt pretty good. Later that afternoon, while the kids were upstairs sorting through the clothes they'd originally packed for Santorini, I checked my bank account. The refunds had all processed. Nearly $9,000 returned to my credit card. Money that had been earmarked for creating memories, for healing our fractured family. On impulse, I opened my laptop and searched for beach rentals within driving distance. A modest cottage appeared on the screen, nothing like the luxury villa in Santorini, but charming in its simplicity. Available starting tomorrow, 3 bedrooms, private access to a quiet stretch of shore. I booked it immediately. When I called the kids downstairs to share the news, their initial excitement was tempered with caution. Is Grandma going to come? Emma asked, the question hanging heavily between us. No, I said firmly. This trip is just for us. Our fresh start. The relief on their faces confirmed I'd made the right decision. We left early the next morning as my mother's return flight was departing Athens. The irony wasn't lost on me. As she began her journey back to a relationship forever altered, we embarked on a new chapter of our own. The beach cottage was exactly what we needed. Simple, peaceful, far from the glamour of Santorini, but perfect in its own way. The first evening, we walked barefoot along the shore as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the sand. Do you think Grandma's okay? Emma asked suddenly, skipping a stone across the gentle waves. She'll be fine, I assured her. Your grandmother has always landed on her feet. But will we see her again? The question revealed the complexity of her feelings, anger at the betrayal but attachment nonetheless. Eventually, I said after careful consideration. But when we do, things will be different. She'll need to respect certain boundaries. Like not being mean to you? Jason suggested. Like treating all of us with respect, I clarified. And understanding that being part of our lives is a privilege, not a right. That conversation was the first of many during our week at the beach. Away from distractions, away from the shadow of my mother's judgment, we spoke honestly about the divorce, about their father's new life, about how we wanted our family to function moving forward. I was so fixated on giving you both this perfect Instagram-worthy vacation, I admitted one night as we roasted marshmallows on the beach. I thought we needed whitewashed buildings and infinity pools to heal. Jason poked at the fire thoughtfully. This is better, though. Emma nodded in agreement. It's real. By the time we returned home, my mother had left 17 more messages. The last one was different from the rest. Less demanding, more reflective. I understand if you need time, she said. When you're ready to talk, I'll be here. 6 months passed. Seasons changed. The kids settled into new routines at school. I received a promotion at work that my mother knew nothing about. Small victories accumulated into a life that felt increasingly my own. When I finally agreed to meet her for coffee, it was on my terms at a neutral location. She looked older somehow, diminished, but her eyes still held that familiar sharpness. Thank you for seeing me, she said as I sat down. I'm not here to rehash everything, I told her. I'm here to establish how things will work going forward if you want to be in our lives. To my surprise, she nodded. I've had a lot of time to think. So have I replied, opening the notebook where I'd written my non-negotiable boundaries. The conversation wasn't easy. Old patterns threatened to reassert themselves. But something fundamental had shifted between us. My willingness to walk away gave me a strength she couldn't dismiss. We didn't solve everything in that single meeting, but we made a start. A relationship built on mutual respect rather than obligation. A connection defined by choice rather than guilt. As I drove home afterward, I realized the failed Santorini trip had given us something far more valuable than Mediterranean sunsets or infinity pools. It had given us truth. Painful, necessary truth that cleared away decades of pretense. Paradise interrupted had become paradise redefined. If this story of a mother finding her voice and rebuilding stronger boundaries touched you, hit subscribe for more journeys of family healing and personal growth. Your support helps share these stories of transformation with others who might need them most.